All right, hello. So we've been talking about how to graph lines in slope-intercept form, or y equals mx plus b. Another type of equation that you'll see is something called standard form, and today we're going to learn how to graph a line that's in standard form. Okay, we're going to do this by using x and y intercepts. Okay, before we start, again, we're going to improve our number sense here. How many pieces of paper are in this pack, do you think? Okay, so how do we graph standard form using intercepts? That's our essential question today. And our standard form is ax plus by equals c. Now we've been accustomed to equations that look like this: y equals mx plus b. Notice they're all lowercase. And the y is by itself on one side. So the difference here is, notice the x and the y are on the same side together, and these a, b, and c, these are capital letters, these just represent numbers. So it could be something like 3x plus 7y equals 21. Something along those lines, and the x and the y are on the same side. Notice x first, then y, and then it equals some constant. Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about. How do we graph a line that looks like this now? So these are the two most common types of linear equations: standard form that we're going to learn today, and then what we've learned already, slope-intercept form. Okay, before we do that, we're going to do this using something called intercepts, which you've talked about before. You remember that the y-intercept is our little b, and here we're going to also talk about our x-intercepts. Remember, intercepts are just where it crosses those things. So x-intercept is where the graph crosses the x-axis. You'll notice here this graph crosses the x-axis at -4, so that's the point -4, 0. All right, and then this is the y-intercept right here. This is where the graph crosses the y-axis. Well, and that's at 6, so 0, 6. If I know those 2 points, I can draw a line. All I need is 2 points to draw a linear function, right? So ours is a line. Now here, in this particular case, this is my x-intercept, and this is the point 4, 0. This is my y-intercept right here. Okay, and that is the point 0, 3. All right, so let's just examine a couple of things here. What do the x-intercepts have in common? So here's an x-intercept right here, and here's an x-intercept here. Now this one happens to be -4 and +4, but you'll notice they both have a y value of 0. So what do they have in common? The y value is 0. So that's an important thing to remember. Now, if we look at the y-intercepts, what do you notice? Well, the y-intercepts, notice they have an x value of 0. This is also important. Okay, that's why when we said find the y-intercept, we wrote b equals, and we just said 3. And the reason for that was because the x value is 0. Okay, so that's what we were doing with slope-intercept form. Okay. Now, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a standard form, something like this one, 4x plus 10y equals 20. Notice x and y are on the same side. This is standard form. So that's how you know you want to use this. So what it says here is we're going to find the x and y intercepts. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, we just said on this previous slide that the x-intercepts is where y equals 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to write that here. We're going to write y equals 0 for x-intercepts, and we're just going to plug a 0 in for y right there. So I'm going to write 4x plus 10 times 0 equals 20. Okay, now when I do that and I plug this in, you know that 10 times 0 is 0. Okay, so this, if I copy the rest of this, I would have this. Well, 4x plus 0 is just 4x. okay, equals 20. All right, so if I plug a 0 in here, basically this goes away. All right, that disappears. So a lot of times we just write the 4x and the 20, and that's what I have here. So a lot of people call this the cover-up method because when you plug in 0, all this stuff right here is going to go away. All right, so really what you'll see a lot of times is this they won't write. And actually, that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this stuff right here, and I'm not going to write it. You don't have to write that. When you plug in 0, this stuff will disappear. So I'm just going to delete that. And then now I've got this. Oh, we lost our y equals 0. So when I put a 0 in here for y, 0 goes here. What happens is this disappears because that's just equal to 0. That's nothing. So we cover that up and we just write what we have left. 4x equals 20. So that's what you can see, that's what I have here. So we call this the cover-up method oftentimes. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve this equation right here now for x. So I'm going to say, how do I solve this? We did this at the beginning of the year. That's 4 times x. So I'm going to do the opposite and divide by 4. I need to do that on both sides. This cancels out. 4 and 4 is 1. So this is 1x equals 5. Okay, so what is the x-intercept? It is 5, comma, and then what's my y value? 0. 5, 0. This is how we find the x-intercept. We just plug in 0 for y and go from there. So let's do the y-intercept. Okay, now up here we said that the y-intercepts, what do they have in common? That's where x is 0, okay? So that's what we're going to do here is use that fact. And I'm going to write that here. X equals 0. Now if I put a 0 here in for x, I'm going to get 4 times 0. So 4 times 0 plus 10y equals 20. Well, this is just 0, and so I would just have this, right? So once again, we usually don't write these two steps because what I'm left with is just 10y equals 20 because 0 is nothing, right? So really people, what they do is they just cross this, they can't cover this up. Now I can't quite show you that with my finger, so I'm just gonna scratch that out so you can see. Now notice I have that plus in there. That's just to keep me a reminder that that's a positive 10x, or 10y, excuse me. So really, what I'm going to write is just that instead. So this that I wrote here, I'm just going to delete that. Usually we just cover that up and we're going to write 10y equals 20. And now we're going to solve this for y. Notice this time we're solving for y because this is our y-intercept. To solve this, I'm going to divide by 10 on both sides, the opposite of multiplication, division. So this is 1y, or just y. 20 divided by 10 is 2. You can type that into your calculator if you need to, but there we go. Now I'm going to write my ordered pair. Now this time it's going to be backwards. X is 0 first, and then 2. And that's my y-intercept. And like I said before, we were often just writing y-intercept 2. But these are my two x and y-intercept, and we used something called the cover-up method to get there. And really what we're doing is we're doing that because we're plugging in 0 for y for x-intercepts and 0 for x for y-intercepts. Okay, so we're going to use this fact to help us graph now. And you'll see it's not so bad. All right, so graphing standard form. How do we do this? We find the x-intercept by plugging in y equals 0, 0 for y. Then we find the y-intercept and we plug in 0 for x. We're going to plot those 2 points on the graph and then just connect the line all the way through the graph. Once again, you can see here at the bottom, this is also often called the cover-up method, which is kind of what we've been talking about. So let's try this. You might be a little confused right now, and if you are, that's okay. We're going to do this right now together. So it says find the x and y-intercepts and then graph the line. So I have this equation. Notice it's in standard form. X and y are on the same side. They're both on the left there. X is first. And this is, again, often called the cover-up method. Here we go. We're going to do our x-intercept first. What do we do to find our x-intercept? We plug in y equals 0. I'm going to write this over here right away. And then we're going to find our y-intercept. And how do we do that? We plug in x equals 0. That's all those y-intercepts have an x value of 0. They have that in common. Okay, so now, here we go. I'm going to plug in, let's do our x-intercept first. I'm going to put a y equals 0 here. What that means is this will become 6 times 0 or nothing, 0. So this is going to disappear, right? We're going to cover that up. So what do I have left? 3x equals 12. Now I'm going to solve that little mini equation. Divide by 3 on both sides. And x equals 4. So my x-intercept is 4, 0. All right. Now I'm going to write that right here where it says x-intercept, 4, 0. Okay, so I'm also, well, let's do the y-intercept first. Then we can plot that. All right, now the y-intercept. So I'm going to erase this so we can see a little bit better. Okay, so this time we're going to do the y-intercept. We're putting a 0 in for x, a 0 right here. When we do that, we're going to have 3 times 0. This will disappear, okay, or be 0, right? And that's nothing. So what do I have left? I have a positive 6y, so I'm going to write 6y equals 12. I don't need that plus sign there. If it's negative, I do want to bring that negative sign there, because when we don't write anything, that means it's positive already. All right, so now I'm going to solve this. Divide by 6, divide by 6. Y equals 2. Okay, I'm going to write my ordered pair. X is 0, y is 2. So my B there is 2. So I'm going to put 0, 2 here. And now we're going to just plot those 2 points. So the x-intercept was 4. You can, if it's easier and you don't want to get confused, if you just look here, say the x-intercept is 4. So on my graph here, okay, that's my x-intercept. My y-intercept, what did we say our y-intercept was? Is 2. So if you want to look here and that's easier, then cool. So here we go, put a 2 at 2. That's 0, 2 right there. And now we are going to connect those dots and those points. We have a line that we can graph because we just have 2 points and that's all we need. So here we go. Through those 2 points. Okay, again, hold it to get it straight. Make sure your line goes all the way through the graph, not just partially. Don't do this. That's not going to work. We want it all the way through the graph. It goes on forever. So you need to show that by going all the way through this graph. I'm going to fix this a tad here. Okay, and then putting arrowheads on to indicate that that goes on forever. Remember, a line goes forever. And now we've just graphed a line in standard form. That's it. Let's do one more to make sure this makes sense. Okay, here it says find the x and y intercepts, graph the line, but you'll notice the difference here is there's some negatives involved. This first one has a negative, so we got to be careful of that. And here we go. I'm just going to, once again, start by writing x-intercept. This is where y equals 0. And the y-intercept, this is where x equals 0. Okay. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to put a 0 in for y to start. Okay, that means this is going to disappear. So I would have negative 4x equals 20. All right, now I'm going to solve this. Divide by negative 4, right? Make sure that's a negative 4 you're dividing on both sides because you want to get rid of that negative 4. So do the opposite and divide. Don't put a positive there. So this cancels out to get positive 1 there. So we have positive 1x equals negative 5. So this is negative 5, 0. If you want to plot that point right away, you can, -5 on the x-axis. Maybe we'll do that this time. I'm going to put that there, and I'm going to write -5, 0. Okay, so now we've done the x-intercept. Let's do the y-intercept. Okay, so the y-intercept, we're going to put a 0 for x right here. That means we're covering this up. Okay, it's, what am I left with? Positive 5y equals 20. Again, if that's a negative sign, make sure you bring that down. Okay, but where it's positive, so we're okay. So divide by 5, divide by 5. Y equals 4. So that's my y-intercept. 0, 4. On the y-axis, find 4. Put a dot. There we go. Now I'm going to draw my line. Zoom in a little bit here. All the way through the graph. Hold it. Kind of straightens it out, but now it's a little off, so I'm going to go to the scissors here and make some adjustments. Again. All right. That's better. Now, arrowheads on here. We've graphed our line. We're good to go. And that's how you graph lines in standard form. Use the cover-up method and plot your x and y intercepts. All right, so once again, what are we doing? Find the x-intercept by plugging in y equals 0. Then find the y-intercept by plugging in x equals 0. Plot those two intercepts and then connect the line. This is called the cover-up method. All right, here's your assignment that I'd like you to write into your planner, graphing standard form worksheet. Put that into your planner, and then when you finish, check it off. Good luck. Hope this makes sense. Bye.